I think after that left, I think there's some confusion.
What did I say?
It's fine.
It's not distinct by your current parameters, it has to be on the United States.
Although that we did have very interesting questions. Was it last week? Oh, well, they should have been travel. What do they do for passports? We need special passports. I'm sure they will. It was this new passport. I'm waiting, Janet. I'm waiting.
Well, it's on record there.
Yeah, and also it was smart
That's what we said about it.
oh yeah. No.
Shabbat Shalom. Thanks for being here this morning to help us welcome Shabbat during the day and to continue this day of rest. Thank you to the Infels who will be sharing Torah, words of Torah, with us a little bit later. Let's turn in our Sidurim to 192, Tamat Tovu, which has often been described as a way for all of us who sometimes feel like outsiders to slowly come into the community and feel that much more at home in the sanctuary and in the synagogue community together. So 192. The giving of tzedakah, which is alluded to quite a bit in this week's Torah portion, which is Parashat Terumah, and we'll be hearing more of later. And what we're going to be pointing out throughout our service are the number of texts, both traditional liturgical selections as well as some of the English, the alternative English that the editors of the Siddur have added, which really focus on our obligation to take care of others. There are two terms in our tradition that are related to this and that have slight differences. There's tzedakah and there's gimilut chasadim. Does anybody want to point out a little bit of the difference between the two? between tzedakah and gimilut chasadim for how you understand it?
I don't know Gimla Chasadim. I don't know that term.
Okay, well, first of all, I'll point out it is here on the wall.
Right.
It is part of, from Pirkei Avot, Al Shlosha Dvarim Ha'olam Omed, on three things the world stands, right? Al HaTorah, on Torah, the Al Avodah, on worship, the Al Gimilut Chasadim.
Okay.
So it's one of the three things on which the world stands. So you need to figure out what that is.
Acts of loving kindness.
So we're not exactly right. We don't have in English a term that really captures it, so we use acts of loving kindness. Acts of loving kindness. What makes tzedakah different from that? Or what is the difference between the two? Yeah.
All I would imagine is, I didn't know this term either, but I always knew what tzedakah meant and charity, but from more of a, financial.
Yeah. So that seems to be, tzedakah is a form of gimilut chasadim, right? But gimilut chasadim does not only mean tzedakah, right? By the way, does everybody have one of the packets that I handed out over by the theory? Anybody need one? Okay, we're going to refer to this a few times throughout our service today. Do I hand one today? Oh, you have it? Okay. Anybody else need? Okay,
Sean needs one.
oh, you're such a mensch.
Act of loving kindness.
Yeah.
Tzedakah.
So one of the things we're going to be thinking about are some of the distinctions, especially the struggle in English to capture what tzedakah is. So if you take a look at this front page of the packet, Origins of Tzedakah. Can somebody read this first text from Deuteronomy? Please, Sean.
And when there is a needy man among your brothers within your gates in your land, which the Lord your God is giving to you, you shall not harden your heart nor avert your hand from your poor brother. But you shall surely lend him as much as he lacks, that which he has not. For the poor will never cease out of the land, which is why I command you, saying, you must open your hand to your brother, to your poor, and to the needy in your land.
So when you read that text from Deuteronomy, what do you think? What's the commandment? What are we being taught here? Yeah, Maxine.
Give from your heart as opposed to tzedakah, which is from your pocketbook or how you'll put it.
And you shall not harden your heart against the needs of your fellows, right? Nor avert your hand, but you shall give as much as he lacks. So we're going to think about that as we go through our service, and I encourage you to take a look down in the box I made here at the bottom of the page. 3 common words related to tzedakah and to charity, and to just think about the differences between them. So, Barbara, do you mind reading that out loud for us?
Tzedakah, Hebrew, justice, righteousness. Charity in Latin is caritas, love, fondness. Philanthropy in Greek, philia, love, and anthropos, people.
So love of people, right? So we have justice and righteousness, we have love and fondness, and then we have love of people. So start to ponder that. We're not going to talk about that just yet, but start to let that marinate. What are the differences between those 3 terms? And now we go to page 194, and we thank God for our souls, which so many of these commandments will come from. Let's read together in the English on 194. Praise to you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, who formed the human body with skill, creating the body's many pathways and openings. It is well known before your throne of glory that if one of them be wrongly opened or closed, it would be impossible to endure and stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh, working wondrously. Baruch atah Adonai, rofei kol basar u'mafli la'aso. So that's the prayer for body, and now we go to prayer for soul. Elohai neshama shenatata li tehorahi. Elohai neshama shenatata li tehorahi. Kol Yom, which begin on page 198. So many of these are focused on taking care of the world around us, on thanking God for the ways in which God does this, but I think even more so inspiring us to take care of the world in these ways. So what I'd like to do is we'll chant them in Hebrew and alternate with the English so that we have a chance to really appreciate the meaning of each blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan l'sefrina lehavdil bein yom le'layla. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish day from night. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, bokeach ivri. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who opens the eyes of the blind. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, matir asurim. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who frees the captive. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, zokek kefufim. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who lifts up the fallen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, rokach haaretz al hamayim. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who stretches the earth over the waters. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamechin mitzadei daber. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who strengthens our steps. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, malish arumim. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who clothes the naked. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, anoten laya'if koach. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who gives strength to the weary. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hama'avir shina me'enai, u'tuma me'achapai. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who removes sleep from the eyes, slumber from the eyelids. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani b'tzelem Elohim. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who made me in the image of God. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani bat chorim. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who has made me free. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, she'asani Yisrael. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who has made me a Jew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ozer Yisrael b'gvura. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who girds Israel with strength. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, ozer Yisrael b'tivara. So going back through that list of these daily miracles, these miracles that we pray we will somehow experience every day, do any of them speak to you particularly from a tzedakah kind of standpoint? Which ones out of all of these prayers seem to speak to the act of tzedakah? Of acts of righteousness.
I like the one where I'm free so I can do tzedakah and give of my heart.
That's beautiful. And conversely, maybe people who are in need of tzedakah are somehow not free, right, to do that.
Slaves to ourselves or to others.
Wow. Yeah. Yes,
I
yeah.
feel like that the one that says strength to the weary,
Strength of the weary. Yeah, how so?
because it's basically like that's what like you're giving like strength like to the weary, like you're basically giving them like something.
So they're weary, they're in need, and you are somehow strengthening them. Beautiful. What else speaks to tzedakah? Yeah.
Clothe the naked.
Yeah. How so?
Just helping people lead.
Yeah, some of those basic needs, that one seems to really, remind us of all the things we need just to get through life, right? Clothing the naked, so basic. Yeah. Take a look at this alternate reading, this beautiful reading that's on the top of page 201. Can somebody please read this out loud for us? Go for it, Alex.
As I awaken, let this be my thought. May my day be fulfilled with acts of loving kindness. Let me be drawn to learning and discernment, and may actions be shaped by mitzvot. Keep me from iniquity, disgrace, and sin. May I not be overwhelmed by temptation or despair. Distance me from evil people and false friends. Let me cultivate a life of goodness. May my hand reach out in kindness, and I will serve God through acts of righteousness. Today and every day may I merit your mercy by living my life with compassion and love. Holy One of blessing, draw me to your words. Teach me the art of sacred living.
Beautiful. And in that blessing then, Baruch atah Adonai hamelamed chasadim tovim amo Yisrael. Chasadim tovim, there's those good deeds that we're supposed to do for the people of Israel and for everyone. So here we have this idea of acts of righteousness being a key way in which we fulfill the mitzvot. Let's go now to page 218. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Page 224 for the Chatzi Kaddish. And if you are able, please rise. Page 229, let's read together at the top. In the beginning, even then, a new light was sown for the righteous, A promise that your light would become the catalyst, first for order and then for hope. Author of language and light, help us to use words as you have, to cast light into dark waters and draw out justice and truth. Baruch atah Adonai, Yotzer HaMeorot. So I encourage you, as we're going through the service, to make a little mental note anytime you hear the word righteous or justice in our service, because tzedakah, what makes it different is it doesn't translate to anything financial, it doesn't translate to charity, but it translates to an act of justice and righteousness. And what is different about that really is the key question. And so just, keep making a mental note of how often you see justice and righteousness mentioned throughout our service. Page 230. I'll 234 for us out loud. Who would like to read that out loud for us? Go ahead, Susan.
You shall love Adonai your God with all your
Can
heart.
you do, sorry, the English on 235. You're right, I gave you 235. That's
When
right.
justice burns,
Yes, I do.
when justice burns within us like a flame of fire, when love evokes willing sacrifice from us, when to the last full measure of selfless devotion, we demonstrate our belief in the ultimate triumph of truth and righteousness, and your goodness enters our lives, and we can begin to change the world. And then you can live in our hearts, and we, through righteousness, behold your presence.
So the way this Siddur was designed, as a reminder for those of you who have already heard this or if you haven't thought about this before, is the right-hand side of every two-page spread is the traditional prayer, or at least how the Reformed publishes the traditional prayer, with a translation, as close to a translation as possible. The left-hand side of the spread are going to be alternate readings on the same theme. So how interesting that this reading that Susan just read out loud for us is there as an alternate reading for the Via Hafta. So my question for you is why? What do you see as the link? Why this teaching on justice and truth and righteousness linked to this classic familiar text of the Via Hafta? Yeah, Maxine.
When we're teaching our children, justice, or the concept of justice, is one of those traits that we should be passing down.
Beautiful. So when we're teaching our children, this concept of justice and righteousness is one of the key things we should be passing down. What else? Susan, do you want to add something?
Well, I think this is all about internalizing what we say. You know, we shall love God with all our hearts and all our souls and all our might. And that is truly internalizing what you believe in and what is right in your view. So I think that's what this reading, it's about not just saying words, but demonstrating our belief in the ultimate triumph of truth and righteousness. So let that feeling sort of infuse your being.
Oh, that's said so beautifully. Internalize it so that then we can externalize it, right? Take it in and let it be in every cell, and every bit of who you are, so that then you can truly enact this and change the world. Yeah. Take out the packet, if you will. Is someone going to say something? Yeah, sure.
Question. So, do we have to, for God to enter into His goodness, enter our life, we have to give up to the last full measure of selfless devotion? I think that's really over the top.
It is over the top. Yes, it is. Yes, it is over the top. We certainly don't want to destroy ourselves in the process of taking care of the world. So good point and fair criticism of that particular reading.
But I think you have
yes.
to have that as the goal. So even if you fall short of that goal, you're still doing better than the bottom.
Well, I will point out that in Hilchot Tzedakah and the laws related to tzedakah, certainly that Maimonides puts forth, we are not supposed to give so much tzedakah that we put ourselves in harm's way. We are all supposed to give tzedakah. Even the most poor among us are supposed to still give to those who are even more poor, right? Even more in need. But we're never supposed to put ourselves in harm's way. That's against Jewish tradition. So excellent point, Sean. Go ahead to the packet and go to the back of the first page. The 5 differences between charity and tzedakah by Sasha Feldstein. Can somebody read these 5, please? Yes, please.
The basis for charity is love. For tzedakah, it's mitzvah. Charity is gift. Tzedakah is someone giving their due. It's giving someone their due. Charity is voluntary. Tzedakah is compulsory.
being required. Yeah.
Not all charity considered tzedakah, and charity will not necessarily produce sustainable change. Tzedakah can.
What do you take from this? So what are some of the differences, according to this, between tzedakah and charity?
Well, I would say you're giving, charity is an act of love. So therefore, it is in a way to your credit, and it is an expression of freely given. Tzedakah is a recognition of reality and the justice of the world, which is that we have obligations to each other.
Interesting contrast to our week's Torah portion, where the gifts that are going to be given to the tabernacle are supposed to be given from the heart. Those who give are the ones whose hearts so move them to give to the building of the tabernacle. But tzedakah, we understand, is required of us. Your heart almost doesn't play into it, right? Why is that? Why is it not about giving voluntarily? Why is tzedakah compulsory? And think about the root word that I think is a clue. Yeah, it said. Tzedakah is supposed to be what? What does it do in our world?
That actually means strength.
It means,
It means strength.
it means justice and righteousness.
So it's setting the world right.
Yeah. Right? And you know, Susan, I think of you, but you know, it's taking those scales of justice and it's trying to balance them. It's recognizing that there is injustice, that there is imbalance, and it is our obligation in this way financially, but Gimel Chasadim is going to incorporate all the other acts we can do as well to right the scales and to balance them. So what do you think about that contrast between tzedakah and charity? How does that feel to not feel in your heart as part of, bless you, as part of giving tzedakah?
It's sort of liberating.
Sort of liberating, how so?
In the sense that you don't really have a choice. If you really think about it, so then it takes your brain out of it. You don't have to think, well, should I, shouldn't I? The answer's already there.
The answer being
Yes, you
yes.
should.
Yes, you must.
You must. You need to. So then, and I find that kind of freeing. We've had this discussion with mitzvah, like someone dies in the family. In the mitzvah of being at someone's funeral. It's sort of, should we go, should we go? Well, there isn't a whole lot of should or shouldn't be. You're just sort of obligated to,
Yeah.
for all the right reasons.
We do a disservice, and I've said this in other contexts, we do a disservice when we translate mitzvah as good deed. Because that takes the obligation out of it, right? It makes it seem like, oh, it's just a nice thing to do, you know? And for like kindergartners and first graders, that's important to understand that like helping a friend pick up a pencil that they dropped is a nice thing to do. It's about, you know, being a good citizen and being a good friend. But as adults, you make a great point. Though when we think about some of these common mitzvot, especially the ones related to life cycle and related to taking care of each other, being a dam l'chavero between a person and his or her friend and community, these are things we just do. This is just who we are. Other thoughts on this? Yeah, Sean.
In the old Siddur, I don't know if it's in this, there was a quote that went along the lines of, things would not be so well with us if it were not for the contributions of people who are nameless, who have added so much to this world. That is our obligations to people we don't know. Like the guy who made the ink so that a manuscript could be written and knowledge passed on. Just for a little, there are all of these people who have labored anonymously.
Yeah.
That we don't know. We owe a debt of obligation to. I was reading something about if you were to try to track down everybody involved in a cup of coffee,
Yeah. Didn't A.J. Jacobs just do this as his latest project?
Was
Yeah.
that?
The new book,
I've
yeah,
heard about
yeah.
that. Yeah. I mean, so we are connected in like so many ways, and to pretend like I'm a self-made man and I did it all myself, and there, is really.
Hypothetical.
Well,
Were there to be someone who said that?
Right. It would be, it would be an injustice.
And injustice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. So let's
Can
go
I say one
to.
thing?
Oh, yes, please.
It's not just people, it's also people you don't like. Right, you don't have to like or love someone to still be obligated to them. And that's a kind of a nice, liberating also part of it. Whereas charity, you give the things you care about or because of love, but this is not that. I've seen I agree, I like the distinction.
Are there limits to the concentric circles that you consider part of tzedakah?
I don't know that I understand.
Who's included and who we're required to give tzedakah to, and who's not? And you don't have to answer that question, but I think it's something to think about. Does tzedakah only extend to the Jewish community? Does tzedakah only extend to our local people? What's the limit of tzedakah, if anything? Yeah, Izzy, do you want to address that?
Because I was thinking about that. I feel like it has to be absolutely everything, including like animals and the earth. I mean, it has to be everything, because if there's imbalance, it doesn't affect just one person or one group of people. Imbalance is bigger than any of that. Imbalance is imbalance, and it's huge. And that if you're on the top of the scales, imbalance, I mean, no scale, when you take off the weight, no scale ever goes right back to center. It always drops down again before it levels out. And so it seems to me that if you're interested in maintaining, even selfishly, if you're interested in maintaining your own privilege, that if you are maintaining imbalance, that you are undermining even yourself. So that the obligation to create balance could be both selfless or selfish, and either way, you have an obligation to maintain balance and justice for yourself and for the whole thing.
Because the intention also doesn't matter, you just have to do it, right?
Yeah, I'm agreeing with that. I'm also saying that I think it's, even if it's selfish, that maintaining your own privilege actually undermines your privilege ultimately. So whether it's selfless or selfish, either one is irrelevant.
Yeah. Sadie and that, yeah.
I think that if you give tzedakah to only people that you think deserve it, like only the people that would make it, would are good in the world, and that like you didn't give to people that did anything bad, then you're trying to give this wrong thing to the wrong people. Because I think if you have everything good in life, you can never experience anything else, and sometimes, and then the people that you're not giving it to, could you think maybe they did something really horrible, and you think they don't deserve this? Well, then they're just gonna keep at it, and if you don't give them something that's good, then they can never learn.
So you bring up a really interesting moral quandary, right? About if there are charities, organizations that support things that we morally disagree with, do we give them tzedakah or not? And it sounds like you're suggesting the act of goodness, of showing them something good, can somehow be repairing.
Well, not necessarily charities, because sometimes charities, more people,
People.
individual people, because, charities, I kind of think that's whatever you want to do with charities, because I feel like it's more open, but for example, respect, maybe, if I'm not going to give respect to someone I think are nice, or I like them, or rather than I might not immediately think I'm going to respect to someone that I don't like what they did, but in the end, it seems like that the people that didn't do something that was good for the world, it seems that it always kind of ends the same way, so it always gets fixed.
bringing some of that love into it, right? The loving kindness.
Maybe they only need that they need.
Beautiful. Deb?
Very wise young lady. And my comments were kind of in following. I just wanted to raise the concept of what does it mean to give someone their due? Who gets to make the decision as to what their due is? Is that an individual concept or is that a broad concept?
That's a good question. Because when we're talking about balancing scales and creating justice, right? Is there something that's too much? Right? And who determines that? That's a lot of the debate right now related to billionaires, right? Should there be billionaires? Should that even exist in our world, considering how much poverty there is? You know, and so what is someone's due? It's a really interesting and very relevant concept right now. Okay, let the gears keep turning. Let's turn now to the tefillah on page 242 is where it begins. I'm going to invite you to please rise. Adonai, Adonai, Sifatai Tiftach, Ufi Yadim, Tehilatecha, Adonai, Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Eloheinu, Be'imoteinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol, HaGibor ve'Hamorah, El Elyon, Gomer Chasadim Tovim, Ve'gonei Yaakov, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, U'mevii Ula Livnei Bneihem, Le'man Shemo Le'ahavah, Melech Ozer Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magid Abraham, Bezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayei Hakol Atah Ve'Yoshia, Ma'ashimah Ruach U'Mori Ad Hashem, Mechakel Chaim B'Chesed, Mechayei Hakol B'Rachamim Rabim, Somer Noflim Ve'Rofei Olim, U'Matir Asurim, U'Mekayem Emunato, L'Shenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Yehudot, U'Mitomelach, Melech Meid U'Mechayeh, U'Masmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah b'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Mehadesh et shimcha ba'olam, V'shem shemach tishimot, V'bishmimano, Kakatum hayad ne'v'yecha, V'kara zeh zeh ve'amar, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzebaot, Melot haaretz, Yevodo, Adir, Adireinu, Adonai, Adoneinu, Ma'adir, Shimcha b'chol haaretz, Baruch Yevod Adonai. so much of which relate to the themes we're discussing today. And you may be seated when you are finished. Before we turn to our Torah service, I want to point out a really interesting text that I've given you today. The second part of the packet is a compilation I had put together of texts on Jewish values and ethics. For a course I've been teaching, and so many of them are relevant, but we're not going to read them all today. I just thought you might enjoy them for your own edification. But I want you to please turn to page 6 of that part of the packet. Text 15, you'll see it says. And this is a really interesting quote-unquote argument, okay? It's not really an argument that takes place amongst people in a room together, but it's texts arguing with each other about what's the key, what's the secret of it all, what's the main commandment. If you were going to take all of Jewish teachings and sum it up in the most concise way, how would you do it, okay? And so this comes from the Talmud, which, as you'll recall, is a text that is written down around the year 500 CE, and it it contains discussions and debates amongst rabbis from the past, from hundreds of years before that. They finally write down in the year 500. And it's them really trying to figure out how to take Torah and make it livable, how to take from it ways that we can live our lives as Jews, as this Jewish thing continues. So here in the Babylonian Talmud, they're trying to figure out the point of it all. Okay? So who would like to read the first two sections of it for us? Jody, you want to do it?
Rabbi Simlai expounded. 613 commandments were revealed to Moses. 365 negative commandments corresponding to the days in the solar year, and 248 positive commandments corresponding to the parts of the body.
Okay, so they had already figured out that if you go through the Torah and count all the times there are mitzvot, all the commandments, there are 613 of them. There are 365 negative, meaning things you shall not do, right? And then you have 248 things you should do, okay? So then,
when David came, he summed up the 613 commandments in 11 principles, for he said, "The Eternal One, who shall abide in your tabernacle? Who shall dwell on your holy hill? He that walks upright, works in righteousness, speaks truth from his heart. He that has no deceit in his tongue, nor has done evil to his neighbor, has not endured a reproach against his kinsman, in whose eyes a vile person is despised. He honors those who fear the Eternal One. He swears to his own hurt and does not change. He does not give out money against interest, nor takes reward against the innocent."
okay, so then we have Isaiah come up, and remember, this isn't an actual argument happening, but these are different texts that are compiled. So what about Isaiah? Who wants to read Isaiah for us? Dad, you want to do it?
Sure. When Isaiah came, he summed up the 613 commandments in 6 principles. For Isaiah said, 1, he that walks righteously. 2, and speaks uprightly. 3, he that despises profit from fraudulent dealings. 4, that waves away a bribe instead of grasping. 5, that stops his ears from hearing of infamy. 6, and shuts his eyes from looking upon evil. He shall dwell on high.
Thank you. Who wants to read the one from Micah? Yeah, exactly.
When Micah came, he summed up the 613 commandments in 3 principles. For he said, "It has been told you, O humanity, what is good, and what the Eternal requires of you. 1, only to do justly. 2, to love mercy. 3, to walk humbly with your God."
Which we have right there. Okay, yes. And then it continues after. I'm reading at the top of the next page. Is it page 7?
To do justly refers to maintaining of justice. To love mercy refers to the doing of your deeds of mercy. To walk humbly with your God implies to keep even dowering your pride and providing truth to the dead.
Trust.
Now given commandments that are customarily not done in private and thus do not require humility, the Torah commands, walk humbly with your God. How much more strongly does this precept apply to commandments that have to be done in private? Question.
Right, so don't just do these things out loud. You're out in public where everybody can see you, but how are you living in this way in private at home? Okay, and Isaiah and then Habakkuk, who wants to read the last 2 for us? Yeah, Alex, please.
Upon further consideration, Isaiah summed up the 613 commandments into 2 principles when he said, "Thus says the Eternal One, keep justice and do righteousness." When Habakkuk came, he summed up the 613 commandments in 1 principle, for he said, "The righteous shall live by his faith."
Thank you. So justice and righteousness coming up. What do you make of this? What are your responses? What do you think of their summations? Do you agree? Disagree?
I think the last 2 don't say anything about mercy, maybe that kind of, and that is the 2 thrones, justice and mercy.
Interesting. Do you feel they're not even implied?
I think they're, I don't think they're implied. They're just saying, keep justice, do righteousness. but there's like, I prefer Micah's vision of things.
Having mercy in there too, explicitly.
Yes.
That's interesting. I often wonder if in righteousness there is mercy, if living a righteous life means compassion. But you're right that it's not said explicitly, so it is up to interpretation. Other thoughts? And what does it mean, the righteous shall live by his faith? What does that include? What could it include? Yeah.
If your faith is all of the things we've discussed, so
Yeah.
it kind of sums it up. If you believe in the Torah and God, well then, you're living by your faith. So
Yeah.
you really don't need all these other things.
You don't need all the like reminders,
You don't, right, exactly.
You're kind of just
Right,
doing
you
it.
just do it, right,
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of us need the reminders,
right.
right? We need it laid out in 613 commandments, right? But if you were to say, I'm going to live by my faith and I'm going to live righteously, then maybe all these other things would just come from it. And maybe the giving of tzedakah, taking care of those in need in our world, and in the land and in the animals, as we've mentioned, all these different ways we can balance the scales of injustice in our world, maybe that would just come naturally to us. Before now, we're going to go to our Torah portion, to our Torah reading. I will pose to you the question I often pose to Holy Scrollers and to other Torah study groups I've worked with, which is, what is the point of studying Torah and reading Torah? Is it just an academic exercise? Is it just for, something fun to do mentally? Or is there something, as Maxine, as you said, that we're supposed to take away from it that's going to lead to a righteous way of living in the world? So, we're going to turn to page 362 for the Torah reading, the part of our service surrounding the reading of Torah. And we need some people to help out. Who would like to open the ark for us? We need ark openers. We need someone to do the hakafah, if you'd like, to carry the Torah around. We need somebody to undress the Torah. Anybody? Any volunteers? Which would you like to do? You like to open the ark? Okay, come on up. Sean, what do you want to do?
Well, I'll carry the ark. The Torah.
Okay, you can carry the ark too. It's a little heavy. We need at least one other person. Okay, so open the ark. Yes, Izzy, what would you like to do? You can open it too, okay? And so, who would like to help undress the Torah when we finish with the hakafah?
I can do that.
Okay, Jeff, come on up. Everyone else, please rise.
I'd be wrong also.
That would be wrong.
Just like the half.
Really wrong. And really bad. Yes?
It's not just the 5 books of Moses, the Torah is also.
You're right. So therefore, there is no reason to call it the 95 books of Moses. So thank you. So we're on page 485. He was Jewish. I mean, that was at least a good thing. But what? At least born that way. Started a lot of really interesting conversations about Jews and tattoos, and that's also very interesting. For those of you who didn't watch the Super Bowl halftime show, you might not know what we're talking about, but that's okay. So page 485. And in what order do we have the infills today?
We are in order that we're sitting left to right.
Oh, that is so helpful. So Zach Infeld is coming up to read, and who would like, and Leo, we have 4 opportunities for Aliyot today. Susan, you want to come up?
Can I just grab Thomas?
Please.
I'll do one too. Maybe I'll do one too.
And what's your Hebrew name, Susan? What's your Hebrew name?
Oh, Esther.
Esther Bat?
Oh, but Avram Moshe.
Esther Bat Avram Moshe. Talmud, Esther Bat Avram Moshe, Aliyah LaTorah.
Baruch Adonai Baruch.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Yelam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam Asher B'charbanu Mikol Ha'amim V'natan Lanu Et Torato Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayidaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. Daber el bnei Israel v'chuli truma me'ed kol ish asher yibeinu libo tichu et trumati v'zot hatruma asher tichu me'itav zahav v'chesed u'choshet v'tuchelet v'argama v'illet v'tola shani v'shefet.
So Adonai spoke to Moses, saying, tell the Israelite people to bring me gifts. You shall accept gifts for me from every person whose heart so moves him. So here's that key phrase that makes us kind of go, I wonder what that means. It's not a commandment in the sense that everyone is going to be obligated to give, but everyone whose heart moves him or her is invited to donate to the materials that will be used to build the tabernacle. And one of the questions I posed in Scrollers, and I'll pose to you too, is why isn't it an obligation? Why don't we say, you all must contribute to the building of the tabernacle? And how would that be different from only saying those who are inspired to give should build the tabernacle.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'torkeinu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher koach. Yasher koach, Zach. Wonderful. And now Barbara Infeld is coming up to, oh, thank you, do a thingy to read for us. And what is your name? Bat?
Leah Bifiro.
Okay. Ta'amod nechama liba ita bat
Leah
Leah
Bifiro.
v'faibo l'aliyah la Torah.
Baruch Hu et Adonai Nambarah.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Elam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Nambarah Elam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amin v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Ve'orot elim me'adamim ve'orot techashim va'atzei shetim shemen lamahor v'samim l'shemen hamishpat v'liktoret hasamim avnei shoham v'avnei miluim va'efod v'lachoshen va'asu li mikdash v'shamhanti b'torah.
So, translating a few of the verses that Zach read that I didn't get to, these are the gifts that you shall accept from them. And here's now a list of what they're going to be looking for. Gold, silver, and copper. Blue, purple, and crimson yarns. Fine linen, goat's hair. Tanned ram skins, dolphin skins, and acacia wood. Oil for lighting, spices for the anointing oil, and for the aromatic incense. Lapis lazuli, or lazuli, and other stones for setting, for the ephod, and for the breastpiece. Those are some of the parts of the ritual garb for the priests. And let them make me a sanctuary that I may dwell among them. Basuli mikdash. Make me this holy space. Kadosh. You hear that word for holy in there. And I will dwell. What does that mean? That God will dwell there in that holy space. I will dwell among them. Now, one interesting note, if you study this portion in the Women's Torah commentary, it'll point out that the women must have been very involved in this, and it's kind of glossed over. Who was making the yarns? Who was making the textiles that are used? Who's taking care of the animal skins in such a way and preparing them for usage? And so interesting to think that the women are very involved in this, and we just don't get to hear much about that.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan v'torkeinu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher koach. Yasher koach, Barbara. And now Alex will be coming up, Alex and Phil, to read the Torah for us. Would anyone like to come up and do an aliyah? No, Henry, you want to do an aliyah? Okay. All right, there it says.
I like the except for the first sentence.
You like what except for the first
What did you
sentence?
say?
What did I
But
say?
the first sentence about,
All right. What's your Hebrew name?
Speed witness.
Speed ben, Speed ben Nissen Halevi. Speed. Ya'amod Speed ben Nissen Halevi l'aliyah Torah.
Thank you. Baruch Adonai HaBaruch.
Baruch Adonai Baruch Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaBaruch Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech olam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amin v'natan lanu et Torato, excuse me. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Kecho asher ani barelcha et tavnit hamishkan ve'et tavnit kokelav ve'et ta'asu Yasu Aron Anse Shitim Amatayim Vachetzi Arko Ve'ama Vachetzi Rachbo Ve'ama Vachetzi Komato Vitzipata Ta Zahav Tahor Nivait Umichud Sitzapayim Vasitala Zev Zahav Saviv Ve'atzak Talo Arba Talot Zahav Ve'natata Arba Amatav Ushte Tavot Atzalev Ha'echad Ushte Tavot Atzalev
So, verse 9, Sean, can you repeat what you said in Scrollers about this verse that you found interesting?
Well, I just think, it's a point of exactly as I showed you, the pattern of the tabernacle. So that is, it's showing this micromanaging aspect of, it's got to be exactly as I showed you. It can't be 10 cubits, it has to be however many cubits it is. It can't be 2 3/4 cubits long, it's got to be 2.5 cubits long. So there's that aspect of it. That is very, key to us in later after the golden calf is built. And we see the people, we pretty much repeat the portion teruma again, but now it's not commandments, it's people actually doing it, it's the account of it. And they do it, keep making sure it's exactly as God has commanded them to do.
And if we extrapolate from that, and we think, is that somehow saying something about how we're supposed to observe commandments? Is there a precision that's required of us? And we, of course, as liberal, progressive Jews, don't believe that about the mitzvot. But the Torah, it's certainly in these sections where it's so precise about measurements and about materials used and how to go about the building of every single piece. It makes you wonder why that level of detail is so important. Exactly as I show you, the pattern of the tabernacle and the pattern of all its furnishings, so shall you make it. They shall make an ark of acacia wood. I just had a new bedroom set made out of acacia wood and thought it was really exciting. 2.5 cubits long, 1.5 cubits wide, and 1.5 cubits long. This is a cubit, for those of you wondering. 22 inches, thank you. And 1.5 cubits high. Overlay it with pure gold. Overlay it inside and out, and make upon it a gold molding round about. Cast 4 gold rings for it to be attached to its 4 feet, 2 rings on one of its side walls and 2 on the other. That's where you stopped, right? And the word used for ring here is the same word that we use in the vows of a Jewish wedding, of taba'at. It's the same word, ring. Okay, go ahead, bless you. Still your turn. Good job. Good job, Henry.
Thank you.
And now, Harona Haviv, last but certainly not least, Papa, Eric and Phil coming up to read Torah for us. Do we have anyone else who'd like to do an Aliyah this morning? Sure, come on. You are 13. This is really interesting. Oh, that's right. Yaakov ben. Oh, okay. Yaakov ben Yaakov ben. Okay. Okay, so Ya'amdu Yaakov ben Yaakov Yehudit v'Sarabat Yaakov v'Isabel Aliyah LaTorah. Baruch Adonai Haborah. Baruch Adonai Haborah. Amen.
Amen. Asita ade atse shitin utsipenta otam zaha bahaveta etabadim batabaot al zalotarom vasaot etarom bahem bahaveta ha'aron iyev habadim lo yisuru mimenu benatata el ha'aron et ha'adut asher otah
So you're going to make poles of acacia wood and overlay them with gold, and then insert the poles into the rings on the side walls of the ark for carrying the ark. And many of you can probably picture this. We have it in many it's been depicted in many different ways, certainly in Raiders of the Lost Ark, but in other ways we've tried to recreate what this must have looked like. Insert the poles into the rings on the side walls of the ark for carrying the ark. The poles shall remain in the rings of the ark. They shall not be removed from it. And then what's going to go in the ark? Deposit in the ark the tablets of the pact, which I will give you. So the 10 Commandments are actually going to be placed in this ark.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tocheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yasher koach. Oh, good. Just an interesting bit of Jerusalem trivia is those people who have been to Jerusalem and have done the Western Wall tunnel tour. You're able to go along the Western Wall, the parts that are now underground. And you're able to get very, very close, if you can picture the Temple Mount, of where we think the Holy of Holies must have been on the Temple Mount, right? We can't, now up on the Temple Mount, of course, is the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And it's a space in the Dome of the Rock, and we're not really able to go there and pray in any way. But the Western Wall Tunnel Tour allows you to get along the Western Wall towards where the Holy of Holies must have been. And there is a theory that under the Holy of Holies, if we were to dig right there, perhaps that's where the Ark is. And perhaps that's where the 10 Commandments are. And we'll never, at least not any time in the foreseeable future, be able to dig right there for all kinds of political reasons and religious reasons. But there is a theory that right under there is the Ark of the Covenant, and maybe even Aaron's staff and a few other holy objects. So now we have the Torah out among us. We take a moment to offer prayers of healing for people who are ill in our families and our community. Would anyone like to share a name out loud?
Michael Lee.
And my mother, Barbella's. Yishaderach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov v'Imotenu Sarah v'Kalei Avraham v'Yimarech v'Yarpeh v'Kol v'Cholim Eila. May the Lord bless our ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel. Bless and heal all those who are ill. We pray, God, that they return to us in wholeness, in wellness, and in peacefulness. Baruch atah Adonai Rofeh Cholim. We praise you, God, who cares for the sick. And let us say together, Amen. Would anyone like to come up and do Haggadah for us? Lift up the Torah. All right, come on back up. It's getting closer to Leviticus, so it's getting easier to lift. And of course, the Torah, when it is lifted, we will all rise. So please rise. loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. Page 598. If you hear the name of a friend or a family member on our Shiva Shoshim or Yortzeit list, you are invited to rise when you hear her name if you're comfortable doing so. This allows us to mark your loss and to offer you comfort, and then we'll all rise for the mourner's Kaddish together. We mark the recent passing of Sigmund Balka, of Harvey Hoberman, and Dr. Francis J. Mose. We mark the Yortzeits, the anniversaries of death, for Albert Alcasser, Luba Appel, Shangle Brightman, Clara Breslow, Louis Case, Marguerite Conley, Irving Davis, Renee Davidson, Evelyn Diamond, Helen Feldbauer, Joseph Friend, Lillian Friend, Isabel Hannenbaum, Ira Callett, Anna Katz, Sherman Lander, Morris Levine, Sarah Levine, Sarah Pear, Isidore Pekaroff, Catherine Pekaroff, Betty Plotnick, Sayer Samuels, Nat Scholler, Paul Simon, Bernard Slater, Henry Sprecher, Stephen C. Seth Wright, and Rose Zavadnik, Zichronam Livracha. Who else is marking a Shiva, Shoshim, or Yortzeit would like to share a name out loud?
Alan Charles Schultz.
May all of the memories of our loved ones always be for a blessing. Together now, let's all rise and recite the words together of Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, v'alma tigraf tirtei, v'yamlich maflotei, v'chayetom v'yometom, v'chayet kol Beit Yisrael, v'agala v'bizman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah v'barach le'olam lamei almaya, v'yitbarach v'yishabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shemei v'kudusha b'richu, le'ela mikol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran v'yalma v'yimru amen. Yehei Shlomo Rabba bin Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom v'ramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say, Amen. Quick announcement, in addition to tonight being our fantastic wine tasting and silent auction fundraiser at 7 o'clock, is the next couple second Saturday services have some really neat things happening, so just something to keep in mind. Next month's second Saturday service in March will be honoring the 30th anniversary of the Women of the Wall, a group in Israel which has been fighting for equality of women to be able to pray, to wear a talit, and to fill in, to be able to read Torah aloud at the Western Wall, and we will be joining with congregations all over the world in honoring and celebrating them that Shabbat. I'm actually wearing a Women of the Wall talit right now. And so I encourage you to come as we celebrate so much of what we take for granted as women in American congregations. And then in April, the second Saturday service, our choir will be with us, which will be really nice. They'll be helping to lead parts of the service, and we'll have their contribution to the liturgy of the morning service. So I hope you will join us for those events. Yes? Can you please announce the prophets?
Tomorrow at 11 o'clock, prophet study group at 11 o'clock. If anyone's interested in reading Isaiah, we are on between somewhere chapter 49 and 53.
Yeah, really nice. Lay-led group of just reading the prophets, and Sean is really owning that, leading that, so facilitating it. Well, thank you. So that's tomorrow morning, which at the time 11 o'clock. And Rabbi's Book Club, we've been reading the book on the new Jewish feminism. It's tomorrow morning at 9:30. Even if you haven't joined us yet, you're welcome to join us. We'll be reading the sections on gender and sexuality and age. So, what is our closing song?
How about Shira on page 643? Hava Shira, Shir Hallelujah, Shir
Shabbat Shalom.
That one I need to worry about, that one I need to worry about.
Torah reading.
Thank you.
And thank you to the Sadie family.
Rabbi, you caught that? Yeah.
Yeah. We like them. We happen to like the kids.
I'm never
along with it. Not so bad.
I might be the president of, I'm probably going to be the president of this day.
Jeff, it's real, you know, what are you gonna do? No, I had Elias and Abe. I would have taken either.
Maybe like Jeff.